$1.87. That was all, and 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it, $1.87, and the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So, Della did it. Which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. In the vestibule below was a letter box, into which no letters would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. Also, appertaining thereunto, was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham, Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity, when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, though they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming D. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim, and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to herself. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a gray cat walking a gray fence in a gray backyard.
Tomorrow will be Christmas Day, and I have only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a gift. I have been saving every penny I could for months with this result. $20 a week doesn't go very far. Expenses have been greater than I had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 for my Jim. Many a happy hour have I spent planning for something nice for him. Something fine and rare and sterling. Something just a little bit worthy of being owned by Jim.
Now, there were 2 possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs, in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch, that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air-shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window some day to dry, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell around her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her shoulders and made itself almost a garment for her. Della quickly does up her hair and runs out the house in some haste to look for the present she wants to buy Jim and give it to him that night at Christmas dinner. When she stopped, the sign read, Signor Sofroni's hair goods of all kinds.
Will you buy my hair?
I buy hair. Let's take a look at it, shall we? $20.
Give it to me, quick.
Oh, and the next 2 hours tripped by on rose wings. Forget the harsh metaphors. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew it must be Jim's. It was like him. $21 it took from her, and she hurried home with the 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully, and critically.
If Jim doesn't kill me before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? What could I do with just $1.87?
Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand, and she sat on the counter of the table, near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his steps on the stairway down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit of saying little silent prayers about the simplest everyday things.
Please, God, make him think I'm still beautiful.
Poor fellow. He was only 22, and had to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat, and he was without gloves. Jim stopped inside the door, as immovable as a setter at the scent of a quarrel. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly, with the peculiar expression on his face.
Jim, darling, don't look at me that way. I had to cut my hair. I just couldn't live through Christmas without giving you a good gift. I just couldn't. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful gift I've got for you.
You cut off your hair?
Cut it off and sold it. Don't you like me just the same anyhow? I'm me without my hair, ain't I?
You say it's gone?
You didn't look for it. It's sold. Sold and gone, I tell you. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me. If it weren't for you, maybe the hairs on my head are numbered, but nobody could count the love I have for you. Should I put the chops on, Jim?
He enfolded his Della for 10 seconds. $8 a week or $1 million a year. What is the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on.
Don't make any mistake, Del, about me. There ain't nothing in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that would make me like my girl any less, but take a look in that box and you'll see why you had me going for a while at first.
She opened the box slowly, for there lay the combs, the set of combs side and back that Della had worshipped long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoise shell with jeweled rims. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile.
My hair grows so fast, Jim, so fast!
And then Della leaped up like a little singing cat. Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her bright and abundant spirit.
Isn't it dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. Let me see how it looks.
Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the chair and put his hand under the back of his head and smiled.
Del, let's put our Christmas presents away for a while. They're just too nice to use a present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. How about we put on the chops?
The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men, who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicles of two foolish children in a flat, who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But, in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these two were the wisest. All who give and all who receive gifts, such as they are the wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi.